Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm trying to create a great community of great auditors with exceptional knowledge and incredible skill of auditing to create a better quality world. I think ISO standard has elevated the standard of many companies in the world, but has not been respected either by many because many auditors, many consultants diluted the standard and the value and the respect it deserves to have. I would blame the auditors, certification body auditors, consultants, and the business greed, due to which the value of this incredibly beautiful standard has been badly tarnished. In many countries, ISO certification, oh, I know what it is. It's not well respected. And by doing that, we are actually hammering on the greatest profession in the world, which defines whether your company will be successful, whether you will be successful as a person. You'll be successful for your personal quality. Your company that you work for will be successful for its successful products, its quality products. You can only go and sell a product that is having good quality as a sales engineer or a salesperson. So all you need is a flawless, a good product, great products. When we talk about product, we include service as well. Remember, when the standard was initially introduced, the focus was on product quality, quality management system to produce consistent quality of product. Over a period of time, service was also included. In fact, the quality management system standard applies equally to services as well, not only for products. Therefore, when I say product, it means services as well. And great products will come from great system. And ISO standards intention is there is a system, establish a system, maintain a system, continuously improve a system that will produce good and consistent quality product. And you, as an auditor, are going to act as a doctor of a management system of a company. The way a doctor looks at the health of our body, you look at the health of an organization from management perspective. My sincere request to you is that develop that incredible quality in you to contribute and develop your career and go to greater height, drive organizations, work for developing best organizations, successful organizations, become successful as a professional and as a leader in the business. So this knowledge would be enormously beneficial for you. Let us create a great quality world. Let's work together to this common goal. The reason I made this video is to give you a historic perspective of the standard, not so much to give a true history of the evaluation. ISO 9000 standard was introduced in the market with certain purpose, with certain aim, to create great quality products through consistent application of a standard, which was the aim of the standard. So the standard required documented procedure for controlling documents, controlling records, the control of designs, looking at customers' requirements so that you can take into their considerations, take into their request or requirement into consideration while designing, procure the material in accordance with a strict quality control process from the reliable suppliers, and then manufacture it under strict quality control process to get the right product or products that the customer is looking for. That was the intent. So over a period of time, the focus of the standard and emphasis of the standard has changed to keep it relevant, to keep it modern and more relevant to the current day business practices. Therefore, as an auditor, you have to understand the evaluation and principles and thoughts behind those changes. Once you understand that, you can apply this, and this will be enormously beneficial for you when you perform the audit. So you understand the reasons for those changes and you adapt those changes and apply those concepts while you do audit so you can create incredible value. That is the reason a good understanding of the sessions that I am going to discuss with you would be enormously beneficial. ISO standard has been the most fascinating standard in the world. More than 1.3 million companies around the whole world has been certified to the standard, and many more organizations are practicing it. You can imagine the number of people in the world working in those organizations. So, how many people must have touched the standard and gained from this? One of the problems that I have found is many people have got many misconceptions and wrong understanding of the requirement. So what I'm trying to do is to give a great explanation of the standard and all the clauses that you understand it better. The interpretation has to be made differently considering different type of an organization that you might be working in and working for. So the interpretation might slightly vary. Once you have the understanding, you certainly can interpret it to the advantage of the organization. Interpret it correctly means you can implement it correctly and get better results. So it's the time now to start. Let's begin. Evolution of ISO 9001 2015 standard as it stands now. Quality has evolved over a period of time. In the beginning, when the quality movement started, the focus was on inspection. Inspection is kind of a verification to segregate good from the bad or bad from the good because you are producing a mixed quality of product. Some of them are acceptable, some of them may not be acceptable because there are variations in the processes. Some of the variations may take the product out of the specification beyond the acceptability range and causing rejections. So the idea was the rejected products or defective products should not go to the customer. So do a sorting, remove the defective products from the lot and send the good ones. That process was in fact inspection. Now, once you started doing this inspection, you find there's so much of rejections, so much of defects are coming from the system. So this inspection is making sure that customer might get the right product, but the huge amount of rejection, who is going to pay for it? That makes the product more expensive. Customer is not going to take it. Imagine you have produced 10 products, out of which 8 are rejected. So the 8 rejected products is also having cost for processing for the raw material and the labor cost and all the associated cost. If they were acceptable, they could have been sold at the same price the way 2 of them can be sold. So now this 2 acceptable product is burdened with the losses caused for the rejection of items. So the product is going to be more expensive. Now, more expensive product will not be interesting for the customer. Why? The customer is going to pay for the defects produced by the company. So in the process, a better manufacturer with superior quality, with lesser rejection, can be more competitive and attractive to the customer, offering better product, timely product. Imagine the amount of rejection they also took time to produce, and the time is completely lost. And there is a cost for raw material, not only raw material, there's a cost of processing, electricity, energy, and so much of other associated overhead costs. So that time will have to be provided again, spent again to make those compensate for those rejected 8 pieces. So a good quality product is more economical. It brings cost down, and that's where the cost of quality and all those concepts came. So the point I'm driving here is the inspection, even though we're segregating the good ones from the bad, was not value adding, and there was a need to control quality. The quality control is a process by which you manage quality, managing for quality, you produce quality. So step by step process, you eliminate the defects from happening at all. So doing things right at the first time and every time is a process where you started doing quality control. Is basically inspection, checking at right stages. By doing that, you are adding value. So when quality control in activities involve also inspection, so quality control by itself is a wider activity where inspection is also needed. Now you find that you are controlling quality, but unless there is a system, because system produces better and consistent results. So you need to really have to have a wider understanding of quality assurance where you have to have a better system to produce, where the quality assurance gives the confidence that we have a system of doing things in certain way. And by doing this, you are going to get the right product. So that confidence is quality assurance. So quality assurance includes quality control and inspection both. This is where we have quality assurance. Now, when we include quality assurance across the organization, including the suppliers, we call it total quality control. In Japan, they call it company-wide quality control. Company-wide quality control and total quality management are basically the same thing, where you have quality assurance. This is the biggest circle within which you have got quality assurance, which includes quality control activities, which includes inspection. That's how the quality concepts got the level of maturity. In the process of quality evaluation, which is most important for us, is to recognize the contribution of the quality gurus. In fact, they left an indelible mark in the world of quality. We are all benefited. They made our world so much better with their knowledge and wisdom. On the top, I would place Dr. Deming. He was a statistician from US and he popularized the famous PDCA cycle. And also in his famous book, The Profound Knowledge, he promoted how an organization can come to a superb level. With the 60 years of his industrial experience worldwide, and came up with 14 points, popularly known as Deming's 14 point of recommendation. We'll talk about them. Very, very important. And one of the most important thing is he popularized this PDCA cycle. PDCA cycle is plan, do, check, and act. Just imagine whatever we do, we need to have a planning and we do things based on the plan. And once you have done that, you check whether you have done it right and then you further improve. Imagine you did not have a plan, suddenly started doing things, it becomes haphazard. And with this, certainly you cannot do it right. If we say that if it is not planned well, it can never be done well. And if it is not done well, you lose your time and effort. A project cannot get into this kind of a state where things were not planned and things were messed up in absence of a plan. So there is a saying that we do not plan to fail, we fail to plan. So Dr. Deming popularized this PDCA cycle, which was actually conceptualized by Dr. Schwartz, and Dr. Schwartz was kind of his mentor of Dr. Deming. Now, this in 1950s when he had gone to Japan, he conceptualized, he started talking about this. So it is also known as Deming's PDCA cycle. Now, we have to plan, we have to do in accordance with the plan, check whether we have done it as it was planned and we are supposed to do. And if we have not done it right, we have to improve further. That forms a PDCA cycle for continual improvement. Very interesting. Dr. Deming's contribution is so much profound. In fact, I find a reflection of his work in the entire ISO 9000 standard. In fact, ISO 9000 or all management system standards, it could be environmental management system standard, occupational health and safety management system standard, business continuity, food safety, or for that matter, any management system standards. These are all written in PDCA model. There is some planning elements, doing elements, checking elements, and acting elements, which is improvement in nature. There is a huge amount of influence of Dr. Deming on ISO 9000 standard. As we are going more detail into the standard, you will find how profound and significant work he did to better our world, to make our world, quality world, so much magnificent. When he started talking in Japanese industries, he was encouraging the Japanese to adopt a systematic approach to problem solving known as PDCA, plan, do, check, and act cycle. Who's the senior managers in the company to quality improvement program. Here it is very important to give a perspective. Imagine in 1950s and just after the Second World War ended, Japan was completely devastated after the devastating nuclear explosion that destroyed a significant part of the country and brought it to the ruins, needed to come up as a whole new country. It was to born actually from the ashes. Now, Japan was not so much famous for its reputation with regards to the quality. And now to come up as a nation, they needed absolutely brilliant quality products. And one or two companies like Sony or Sumitomo or Toyota will not make it. It's needed that all organizations in Japan does it so fantastically well that it is coming up as a quality nation. Japanese Union of Scientists and the engineers, they took the lead and to promote quality in Japan. Unfortunately, at that point of time, the quality initiatives in US was almost abandoned, and Dr. Deming was quite frustrated. In US, defense production, the military standards were very much guiding the quality. So precision that is needed for the arms and weapons was the basic driving force for the superior quality. So the concept was building up that the quality has to be, the customer has to pay for the quality. So it is like you get what you pay for. Now, that kind of an approach was not acceptable to Japan. Besides B2B, Japanese realized the country and the organizations will rely heavily on individual customers and of course corporate customers. So quality would be the single most important determinant for the success of the companies and the country as a whole. That was the true driving force. Therefore, one or two great companies would not make big difference. There has to be an average elevation of quality standard of all companies. So Japan has to come up as a quality nation as a whole. So they needed to emerge as an industrial superpower, and they realized there must be some kind of huge movement to make Japan as a quality nation. A few good organizations will not work. You need a whole nation, all companies to have basic standard regardless of what they do. Regardless if it is an automobile company or electronics goods company or making steel or whatever business they are in. Dr. Deming was really frustrated in US, were actually welcomed in Japan by the Japanese scientists and engineers. And then he started his quality movement, talking to the senior executives because he realized that organizations will be driven by the top. Now, if you go to ISO standard, you will find it starts with the leadership and the management responsibility, and the ISO standard is giving huge amount of importance on the performance and the contribution of the top management to take accountability for the quality management system, to drive the organization towards achieving the quality, to create customer focused organization, to attain the leadership position and so on. So Dr. Deming started this work, and this was getting huge amount of response. He attempted a summary of 60 years of experience into the industry and exposure called a system of profound knowledge. It describes four interrelated parts. One is appreciation for a system we talked about, that the managers to understand the relationship between functions and activities, what they do and what activities they're supposed to perform, and need to understand the long-term aim, long-term goal, not short-term goal. You may have to have a long-term vision, 30 years down the line, how your company is possibly going to look like. Therefore, you have to look for long term benefit rather than short term goals and visions. For that, you have to invest. And your market is not possibly here within the country, it has to go to the globe. Your market will be the whole world. So, he was advocating that you look for the long term vision, and then customer, supplier, everyone, stakeholders in the process will get the benefit. And failure to accomplish the aim will affect everyone in the system, the organizations, will suffer, the country will suffer, the people will suffer. Let me give here an example. I work in an automobile company. I'm giving the name of the company at this point of time because the company does not exist anymore. I started my career in that organization called Hindustan Motors. It was a great company. It was a great place for learning. I learned so much. My life was so much enriched with the people working there with ocean of knowledge, with wealth of knowledge, so much of protectionism, so much of import restrictions. There was lack of the competition. It was absolute monopoly, where making them so comfortable that there was a feeling that we don't have to really improve the product. Customer has got no choice really. You have to come to take this ambassador car only. They were paying the full amount of 95,000 rupees those days. I'm talking about 85 or 86 around that period. One ambassador car was costing 1 lakh rupees, 95,000 to 1 lakh rupees. So the customers were paying this money and waiting for a year. So they were in a hurry to produce somehow. There was not much of choice. So that gave them an impression that whatever we make, it's okay. It was coming to that level when I was into quality assurance and when you raised some points that we were getting a response if we pack off all the components loose and pack it inside the body, and the customer will be very happy to take, because even the roadside technicians can assemble an ambassador car. They'll be very, very happy. So don't bother about the brake doesn't work properly, the steering is very stiff, the gear shifting is a little difficult, and the door is not closing properly, or there's a bit of scratch here and there, things like that. So that kind of complacence really has grown. I could not work, I could not accept that kind of compromises. I was working with the engineers from Isuzu. We were making Contessa, the luxury car, in India again. It was with the Vauxhall body and then engine and gearbox from Isuzu. Now, that was a luxury car. So we are interacting with the Japanese and we see the perfection they want to work. And at the same time, there was no match. There was a great mismatch with the perception and the level and the focus within the same organization. It was unacceptable. I left with a lot of pain after, say, 1.5 years of working there, but that was spectacular that I learned so much. And I knew that this company cannot go with this attitude long. When market opened, the painfully this company went out of business and eventually closed. It was one of the finest place it could have been. And imagine there's the company started in the same year Toyota was established in Japan, and this company was established in India. This company is now closed. I was told it has been taken over by Renault. And where is Toyota today? I here suggest that you read a book called The Toyota Way by Jeffrey K. Liker. It is one of the finest book. It's a must read. It will have a little bit reflection on what Toyota was doing in the Toyota's principles, which were descending from Dr. Deming's 14 points. So they were so very relevant. Now, the second point is knowledge of statistical theory. Dr. Deming was a statistician, so he knew the importance of variation and control the variation and controlling the process capability. Is the process capable of producing the desired level of accuracy in the product? And the control charts, there are upper critical control points, lower critical control points, whether the variations, the data or the measurement data are falling within this range. That's very, very important. The variations are so important. For example, if you go to Starbucks, for example, regardless of who makes the coffee, if you order cappuccino, is going to be the same anywhere you go because they follow absolutely same control implemented everywhere in the same degree of rigor or same degree of consistency. It could be one shop in Rigai, one shop in Fahahil or in Kuwait City or anywhere in India or anywhere in the world because they use the same machine, same recipe, same timing, the same quality of beans, and the same way the people are trained. By doing so, they bring down the variation to an insignificant level that almost there is no variation. By doing so, they make sure that the quality of the product remain consistent every time. This is what you can see in McDonald's. The same thing you can see in KFC or any international outlets, because they perfected the process of variation and controls the variation so that the product quality remain fairly consistent. Theory of knowledge. Theory of knowledge is you need to have a prediction of results based on your experience and knowledge. You should predict the results. You should be able to predict some kind of fairly achievable results based on your experience. And the knowledge of psychology. Knowledge of psychology talks about intrinsic desire of human being. We all want to succeed and achieve in life. We all have got one thing. Every human being is born wants to succeed in their life or recognized in their life, achieve great milestone in their life, leave a mark before before they leave. And that is a wonderful book by Ravin Sharma, that Who Will Cry When You Die? And there are lots of such books which is inspirational. So the whole idea is that you achieve greater milestones in your own life. You achieve greater heights in your life, leave a significant contribution for posterity and leave a legacy. So unless that is recognized in an organization, you cannot get the best from the people that work for the organization. And therefore, people have intrinsic motivation to succeed and extrinsic motivators. Extrinsic could include your pay rise, your social status, your performance grading, that you are given one of the best rating as one of the best performer with a pay hike, and this paves your way to grow within the organization. Deming's 14 points. Create constancy of purpose for improving products and services. A very powerful statement. Constancy of purpose. You have to develop a thorough understanding on why this organization really exists. What is the purpose of this organization? What it is trying to achieve, and where it wants to go, and how it is going to go there where it wants to go. So this is basically constancy of the purpose. So you have to have an unshakable commitment to achieve the mission of the company. You can call it as a purpose statement. And in ISO 9000 and 2015, it is basically the context of the organization. Why the organization is established? What is it going to achieve? What problem in the world it is going to solve? And that's what makes the purpose of an organization and the ecosystem that it operates. So, constancy of purpose and understanding of that is one of the most important and fundamental concepts. So, as a leader, they have to understand, what am I going to achieve in this company? What is expected of me as the driver? And as an auditor, when we go to an organization, we must also know what this company was established for. What is their objective? What kind of problems they were established to solve? So are they still relevant? Are they doing everything to meet those needs and expectation of the stakeholders, of the founders, of the promoters, and the society that needs their organization? So this understanding is so very important. And this is from where the context of the organization, which is clause number 4 in ISO 9001 2015 standard, has come, where we need to know the risks and opportunities, the purpose, the ecosystem of the organization, and how it is being influenced by the external forces and the internal forces, the forces within the organization, how they target, their achieve their objectives, and what kind of objectives they strive to achieve. I will talk about Dr. Juran now. Dr. Juran is also an American quality guru, and he was also a great contributor into the world of quality. Juran is famous for his trilogy called Juran's Trilogy, which started with quality planning, quality control, and quality improvement. You find stunning similarity. Dr. Deming also talked about planning, PDCA. It's talked about quality control rather than relying on inspection, and of course, endless journey, a continuous journey towards quality improvement. Dr. Juran said quality does not happen by accident. It must be planned. That's what's quality planning. And quality control should be integral part of a management control. Do not look at quality of a product, quality separately from the business. If you do not integrate your management control and integrate quality into it, it's not going to work really. So quality control has to be a part of overall management control. And quality planning is a part of planning, control, and improvement. Quality planning is a part of overall planning. Control, how do you control, is also to be planned. And how you improve also has to be planned. So there is a planning for improvement, also planning for control as well. So quality planning includes planning, control, and improvement. Dr. Duran's roadmap was identify who the customers are. Very important point. The whole ISO standard is talking about customer satisfaction. Customer, who is customer? Customer could be the person, the user of the product, who places the order on you. And sometime a small baby, for example. I'm sure you might have noticed the medicine for the babies and the children are normally sweet in taste. They are not bitter in taste. Even the doctor prescribing, a child will not take unless it is sweet. So in that case, the customer could be the father who is placing the order, but the end user is the true customer, who is the baby and small kids. So therefore, Juran told that identify who the customers are, who is the really your customer, and they have to be satisfied. They have to be happy. And unless you know the customer, how can you make them even happy? Therefore, you identify the customers, determine their needs and expectations of those customers. Imagine there was a time, I gave the example of Henry Ford. Any customer can paint his car with any color he wants so long it is black. And this is one era. And another era is design your own car to make the customer delighted. So other day I was looking at a Dodge. They had a wonderful system and also Jeep. So you can sit on your computer, you take the features that you want. There are mass customization. It's not anything that you want. If you want 6 or 7 doors, it might not just happen. But they have got overall design. Within that, you can choose. I want, say, sunroof. I want 4 doors. I want one extra tire on the backside, spare tire, and one on the underside of the chassis, so that you are going for desert trekking or so on, or you go for a long distance, you might need 2 spare tires together. So those kind of things can be your special requirement. So design your own car the way you want. So Juran suggests that identify your customer, determine the needs of those customer, and translate them into your language. Means you put them into your product design. This is how customer wants, and this is how you design the product for the customer. This is what customer wants, and this is what we are going to do to make sure we meet and deliver, design the product, meeting the customer requirement, deliver it to the customer requirement, and develop the product that can respond to those needs. So he was actually driving the organization to become customer focused. And this is the first principle of ISO 9001 2000 standard, the 7 quality management system principles: customer focus, develop a customer focused organization. Here is where it started from. So the concept of customer focus was actually taken from Dr. Joseph Juran's quality planning roadmap. And he was telling to optimize the process. And you also know the process approach is one more ISO 9001 2015 standard quality management principles, and prove that the process can produce the product under operating condition. Now let me give an example. Simple example. You make tea, and possibly your spouse can make a tea, but you use the same ingredient, same tea leaves, same water, but your tea could be completely different from your wife's tea. Why is it so different? Because the processes are different. So what kind of variables are there? The water quantity, the time you dip the tea leaves in the hot water, the time that you soak it, the amount of sugar that you give, and the temperature. Yes, the temperature at what you are serving is also going to change the difference in the taste. So, because of these variations, your two tea made the same ingredients, the tea is tasting so different. So, you have to understand that where variations can come. Even Dr. Deming talked about the variation from his statistical background. So, prove that the process can produce the product under operating condition and transfer the processes into operation. So, validate the process. First, you're talking about validation process. For example, welding. There is something called welding procedure specification. Now, this is when the welding is a special process. Now, you really don't know the strength of the weld. You can check the hardness. With certain property, you cannot check because you cannot break the weld and it's the finished product. So, but you cannot leave it to a chance. So, you need to validate the process in the beginning. So, control all the variables, make a sample weld, test it, and control all those variables. If the test results are okay, you say that yes, this process can produce the weld of this quality. And now you give it to the operation. That's what in a plain and simple language it means. This formula for the result is establish specific goal to be reached. If you don't know where to go, how you can even go there? If you don't know what you are going to achieve, how you are going to achieve? You have to desire specific result for your business, specific level of quality for your business. So the results that you want are the goals that you have to strive for. So once you have this, and he also was telling that now plan for reaching those goals. So ISO 9001 standard, or for that matter, any management system standard, tells you that you have to have objectives or the goals, smart objectives, smart goals, and plan to achieve those objectives. So the ISO 9000 standard, the requirement has actually come from here, from the work that Dr. Joseph Juran has done, and assign clear responsibility for meeting these goals. ISO 9001 clause is roles, responsibilities, and authorities. This has come from here. So you have to have a plan or a goal, define goals, objectives that you strive to achieve, and then you have to plan for it and define roles and responsibility that is required and base rewards based on the results achieved. I can give you a very interesting example. I was working in a contract with PDO in Oman. You know, PDO is one of the most respected oil and gas company in Oman, part of Shell Group. It used to be part of Shell Group. We were given a task every time. The Fridays used to be the day for shutdowns, small shutdowns. There used to be huge reward. If you complete the project on time, the shutdown on time, ahead of time, safely, without any incident, without any accident, and with absolute perfection, you deliver it before the time, you get reward. You get some bonus. Some monetary equivalent is there. So this encourages people to do something great. Why someone will strive and work so hard in 52 degrees centigrade temperature in the scorching sun to complete a project on time in the desert and the field? Because you are rewarded for achieving the goals. But well, there's a penalty. If you're delayed again, not achieving this, there is penalty as well. But the whole idea is give reward. All right. I would like to pay a tribute to Dr. Joseph Juran for his incredible work that is benefiting the people around the globe and those are into profession of quality and management. Thank you, Dr. Joseph Juran. You did a great job, inspired many to become better. You benefited huge number of organizations across the globe. A big thank you. Kaoru Ishikawa. He was from Japanese Union of Scientists and Engineers. He was a brilliant mind. He developed something called fishbone diagram or cause and effect diagram. And also, he conceptualized or practiced quality circle. When I joined my second company in 1987, ISO 9000 standard was just introduced. I was quite fortunate because our leaders, of the organizational leaders, wanted the young minds, young engineers. We just joined as management trainee and graduate engineer trainee. So to get the best of the start so that we can contribute better, we were recruited in this company almost after a gap of 10 years. So they wanted a lot of things from us. The new fresh engineers have joined. We are 10 guys together. So we were sent for the first awareness program on quality management system. That is when we heard about a great standard is come ISO 9001. There was a big hype with the standard. What is the standard talking about? So those days there was not much of experts in India. So our trainer came from, I think, a company called QMI from Canada, and we had the first awareness, and he introduced the concept of quality circle, which we have actually implemented in our organization. I'll give you a very interesting few examples how powerful the quality circle is. So he conceptualized fishbone diagram and quality circles. A great person. He was a professor. He was Kaoru Ishikawa, left an indelible mark in the quality world. He popularized fishbone diagram and quality circles. Now, this is fishbone diagram. Fishbone diagram is a wonderful concept. Like this is the fish and these are the bones. So you can categorize, for example, equipment, people, policies, procedures, or other things. So, and then you identify the causes, right? If you take out the causes, so you can write and group the causes against equipment, against people, against policies, against procedures. So you can find the root cause of the problem or causes of the problem. So fishbone diagram is also called cause and effect diagram, which can be used for systematic problem solving. I'll talk about the quality circle a bit. I was the youngest member in one of the quality circle that was formed. I had the other senior colleagues. Those are managers and very highly experienced people. So we were given some task. One of the tasks was waste reduction. We were manufacturing railway wagons and coaches. It was one of the largest company. The company was established in 1787. So when we joined in 1987, the company was celebrating bicentenary, 200 years. At some point of time, I heard there were almost 25,000 people working. It's like few railway stations and hundreds of acres of land, possibly more than close to 1,000 acres of land was the area. The company had five, six works. So each one is like an industry by itself. It was a giant organization. I was quite proud to be part of this. It was a government of India undertaking. It was the first British company that was set up in India, and it was pioneer in many engineering innovations and the product that was launched in India. It was known for the biggest size cranes, railways, wagons, coaches, tram cars, bridges, gates, rollers, vibratory rollers, road rollers, you name it, it was one of the pioneer company in India. It was a British company called Jessops. So what was happening is we were getting a lot of free supplied material for making coaches, EMU coaches, electric multiple unit coaches. So the sheets were coming and we were storing in a place. There were portal cranes. They were stored. In India, there are a lot of rains. In Calcutta, there are a lot of rains. So sometime the stack of the material gets inundated with the accumulated water. They remain underwater for some time, again dries up. Some amount of water goes inside the sheets, and these are thin sheets. Coaches, wagon compartments are made from sheet metals. So, and after that, when new material comes, they are put on top of it again, taken out. So again, new material comes. So those in the lower level remains there, and maybe after a couple of months or years, they get completely corroded and beyond use. So we took a project how to solve this because the space and crane movements were limited. One thing was done that we created some elevated platform where those plates were immediately kept so that they did not go underwater. If they are not underwater, then there is no chance of getting that level of corrosion. That is number one. So the quality circle came up with some recommendations. Then we decided that new material, first in, first out principle will be applied. So the crane operators and the riggers will be instructed to take the older material, and the store will make sure that the old materials are first used and issued for the production. So the new material will be issued last. Earlier, last in, first out. So the new material comes on the top, and from there they're issued. Now the process was changed to first in, first out. By doing so, we save thousands of tons of sheet metals. And if you put it into price equivalent, it could have been crores of rupees in Indian currency at that point of time. This was not Einstein innovation. These were just many minds put together, putting some quality objective in a micro level. By doing so, many quality circles together can bring a healthy quality movement within an organization. This was conceptualized, and I was so proud of being a part of that kind of a team. One more example, we are making paper machineries, and paper machineries are very huge structure. Even though paper is a thin product, the machineries are very huge. The suction press roll and the rollers and the dryers are huge size cylinders and very long castings. They're very heavyweight. So they need heavy bearing. Maybe 20-inch or 30-inch fag bearings we're actually importing. Those were not manufactured in India. So you import them from our collaborators. We had different collaborators for those kind of technology. And those bearings were imported, thrust roller bearing of very huge size. So if you are keeping them in vertical conditions, over a period of time, they become elliptical. So the roundness is gone and they're useless. So I can give you an equivalent. And those days, our salary used to be, say, 2,500 to 3,000 Indian rupees. And an ambassador car used to be costing somewhere 1 lakh rupees. And this kind of bearings were more than 1.5 to 2 lakhs. So one bearing was basically the cost of two cars. And imagine how many years of our salary. So that was the equivalent for you to understand. Now, what was happening? These were kept vertically, and by self weight itself, they were getting elliptical in shape and useless, and you can't use them when you need them. Then again, these are not readily available. When you need them, there's a long procurement time from Germany, they will come. So there was a huge wastage of money and resources. So our suggestions came from FAG. We were talking to them how we should keep them. So they were kept on their back in a flat position and again tilted on the other side and never kept on this. And by doing so, only by changing the way they were being stored, we saved lakhs of rupees. So this is how Quality Circle can create incredible value to organization. Thanks to Kaoru Ishikawa, he has left wonderful contribution to the quality world. In the modern time, we can talk about Philip Crosby. He is a businessman and author, and Aman Feigenbaum, and he is called originator of Total Quality Control. They wrote beautiful books which are very enriched with knowledge. Phil Crosby's book is Quality is Free is a very hugely popular book. He conceptualized cost of poor quality. Yeah, so actually, quality has got a cost. There is some cost which is prevention cost, which is cost to build quality, better quality material, better processing, better skill, better machinery, precision machinery, and those kind of usage of that can make sure that product will be good, product will be better, and that is adding the cost. So these are cost for better quality. But now there is on the other side, there is a cost of poor quality. If there is a rejection, there is a huge amount of cost for repair, rework, removal of the defects, cost towards the material for the rework, the labor time and the overheads, and the time that is lost, and of course the reputation. So what he was trying to say, if you make quality product, the quality itself becomes free. It's not that there is no cost of quality, but conceptualizing that if you can eliminate the cost of poor quality, you save huge amount of cost. So that becomes almost kind of free. Armin Feigenbaum is very famous as the founder of Total Quality Management. He wrote a marvelous book, Quality Control Principles, Practices, and Administration. It's a great book. I think you all must need this. Feigenbaum talked about quality control as a business method rather than a technicality. It should be considered, the quality should be a driver for business. Imagine today, the iPhone, you go crazy to buy an iPhone or for Samsung advanced model. So whatever they're making are spectacularly beautiful. People are going to rush for your product. That's what happens with iPhone. That's what happens with Apple Macintosh and those, the computers. And you will find high-end HP is not going to be cheap. They're quite expensive. This is what it says. Improve the quality phenomenally. There has to be phenomenal improvement in the product quality or the service quality, and it should be looked at as a driver for the business, not a technicality. So better quality product, people are willing to pay better price. Effective control over factors affecting product quality is classed as new design control, yeah, and the incoming material control, product control, special process studies, and all those areas you need to have really, really good control. Now, new design control is a very interesting concept. I was working for Hindustan Motors as a car maker. I was into quality assurance. An average ambassador car used to take more than, it's a continuous process. So it used to take over almost on an average from the start to finish a car was taking almost a day or so, 24 hours. Now it goes through different process from body shop to paint shop to body trim assembly, car line, and then goes for testing and the final view, and then finally it goes out. So these are the stages in a car manufacturing process. And a smaller car takes this much time. Contessa, on the other hand, was taking considerably less time compared to the time required for assembling an ambassador because that was more easy to assemble. So a new design control was making sure that your assembly time is less, even though the car is luxurious. Incoming material control. It's a very important point. If the material that comes in is not of right quality, your production process will suffer. That is where the purchase control has come. Control on externally provided process, product and services. There is a requirement, then receiving inspection of the purchased material or purchased services. That's what you have to do to make sure that you get the right material from your supplier. Product control, of course, the quality control at every stage of production and realization and special process study. Quality has to be the single most important force leading to organizational success and companies' growth in national and international market. If I talk about Sony has become a truly global brand just because they're superb. Canon cameras, superb cameras. You find they are the best in class product in the world. Apple, products, best in class. iPhones, best in class. So they are known for their quality and the branding and the features. I would like to share an incredible experience with you. Recently, I visited a company. When I sat on a chair and leaned back, suddenly, unfortunately, one leg of the chair broken, and I had a big fall on my back. It was quite an impact. And immediately, I started seeing that there was a buzzer on my Apple Watch. It was giving a prompt that it seems you had a big fall. And this was ready just to press for an emergency call for an emergency service. Imagine what an incredible feature Apple has built into the product. Then, and when a person meets with an accident and not in a position to call, the device will let you call the emergency services. And not only that, possibly they can track the location where the accident took place. So an emergency service provider can reach there with no wastage of time and searching it out. What an incredible feature. That feature could be a unique selling point for the watch, which you cannot expect in a normal product. That's what it means when you develop your product, when you design a product, keep your attention riveted on the needs and expectation of the customer and how you can benefit the customer in a superb way, in an outstanding way, in a most phenomenal way. Quality, in its essence, is a way of managing an organization. There is no organization without inherent quality can flourish and grow. It's like finance, like marketing. Quality is an essential element of modern management. I have visited some of the role model companies in the world. I was quite fortunate to visit Sumitomo in Japan. It's one of the most wonderful company I've ever visited, a steel maker, and they make steel pipes, and that was imported to Kuwait. I had been fortunate to visit Ford in Detroit, in Michigan. Such a wonderful world class factory. You have to see this is a feast for eyes. And why they're different is because the way they manage quality is the biggest driving force. You have to go to an Apple store. You see what a fantastic, simple concept. One stop shop, one person services you, takes your requirement, gives the suggestion, does the deal, takes the payment. You don't have to go to a queue stand for your turn to come for making the payment. What a fantastic shop, isn't it? Operating quality costs are divided into two that we talked about: prevention cost, which is cost of quality we are talking about, prevention cost, which includes quality planning, appraisal cost, including inspection, and internal failure cost, including scrap and rework. These are the cost of poor quality, and that's how an external failure cost, including warranty and complaint, etc. I would like to give an example here. There was a few cases of ignition failure of some Toyota cars in US market. They lost their market significantly in US market. The number of failures were very few. They lost their market share significantly, and they possibly lost their top leading positions in the US market just for few ignition fault. So the complaints and warranty cost took away their pride and the leadership for a significant period of time. This is the role quality plays for the business prospect and prosperity of a company. So TQM is the management approach for an organization centered on quality based on the participation of all its members, aiming at long-term success through customer satisfaction, benefit to all members of the organization and to the society. And TQM requires the company maintains its quality standard in all aspects of its business. Things are done right first time and every time. Defects and wastes are eliminated from operation. And by doing that, you reduce the overall cost and get the benefit. So you have seen how our quality world has been immensely benefited by the incredible work and the legacy the quality gurus have left behind. As we discuss more, you will find how their work has been reflected and enriched the standard. The history of ISO 9001 standard, where it started, what all changed over a period of time since 1987 till today, and what form we are in today. All these I'm going to talk about in next few minutes. All right, so we are going to talk about history of ISO 9001 2015 standard. Very interesting story of its evolution. We mentioned in 50s Japan was doing a lot of creative work with a long-term vision from 50s precisely, from the time Dr. Deming went and they started with Kaori Ishikawa and all other people, a lot of seriousness, countrywide seriousness, and they are progressing so well. And in fact, Dr. Juran at that point of time forecasted in another 30 years, Japan will rule the world in terms of business with their superior quality of products and possibly economical products. A lot of people around the globe could not believe those kind of forecasts. The idea was that if a quality product is offered by anyone, that has to be expensive. A quality product at a cheaper price was not someone that thought about. But what Japan did was an incredible story because they have improvised the processes. There was less original innovations or research, but they did a lot of improvements. Now, during these improvements, they tried to economize the productivity, the cost of the material. Imagine they were buying the worst of the raw material for making steel and making the best of the steel and exporting to the world. So they've improved the process. And reduction of wastage has given them a lot of cost saving with regard to the cost of poor quality. So with this, when Japan was progressing so well, and at that point of time, imagine what was British industry. British was ruling the whole world at that point of time. There was some kind of, the slogans that there is no sunset in English kingdom. Sun never sets. That kind of a thing was giving them a lot of pride. They've conquered many, many parts of the world and made those part their colony. But after the Second World War, when their kingdom was shrinking and their products were not selling as much as they were before these events, their government realized something has to be done. It is believed that Margaret Thatcher, the then Prime Minister, took a very strong call and entrusted the Department of Trade and Industry that do something, that we get back our supremacy in the product quality, and something has to be done. At that point of time, 1979, BS 5750, the first British standard on quality management system, was introduced. And a lot of things, as I have seen, have been fortunate to work with the BS 5750 1979 version. Lots of things were actually taken from the studies and the work of Japanese stories and success stories, and the stories of the role model successful companies in the world, and a lot of work from Dr. Deming and Juran and other great quality professionals in the world. Now, that gave a big leap, that yes, a systematic approach, a standardization is required so that your product quality would be good. So the focus was on product quality, and that is how BS 5750 1979 was introduced. In 1987, the same BS 5750 was introduced as international standard, as ISO 9000 series of standard 1987. At the time, there are three standards: 9001, 9002, and 9003. That was in 1987, which had undergone a revision in 1994. And at that point of time, 9003 standards was knocked off. In 2000, 9002 standard was knocked off. So the same standard became 9001, 2000. The same story continued in 2008. And then 2015, the standard was further revised in its current form. As on date, 2015 standard is still valid. So from 1979, from British standard, which was adopted by ISO standard in 1987, 94, next revision went 2000, 2008, and 2015. This is the series of changes happen. Typically, ISO standards are supposed to change every 5 years, they're reviewed, but every time these changes did not happen in fifth year. Changes took time because the world votes for it, approves it, and then the standard comes in international standard. So it did not happen every time in 5 years interval, but fairly within this period, all these revisions took place. This was done to make sure the standard really remains relevant and workable and continues to give the benefit to the industry. I am a strong promoter of ISO 9001 standard. I'll talk about some of the weaknesses of the standard. I would not say weakness of the standard. It could be the interpretation of those people who have used the standard with their lack of knowledge or difference on subjectivity of interpretation. But ISO standard is by far one of the most beautiful standard, most valuable standard that elevated the quality standard around the whole globe. I told you more than 1.3 million companies in the world has been certified to this and how many million more are people are benefited from this is left to your guess. Let us talk about a little more in detail. So, as of 2000 version, before that, there was a huge focus on documented procedure. Everything needs documentation. But over a period of time, the focus shifted from documented procedure to process approach. We'll talk about those. The more and more time has gone, the focus on process and process improvement has taken center stage. So, as I said, 1987, 9001, 9002, and 9003. It was a 20 element structure. There are total 20 clauses, main clauses. The first one was management responsibility, quality system. The third one was contract review. Fourth one was design control. 4.4 was design control. Document and data control. Purchasing. 4.7 was customer supplied product. Clause number 4.8 was product identification and traceability. Clause number 4.9 is process control. 4.10 is inspection and testing. 4.11 inspection, measuring, and test equipment. 4.12 is inspection and test status. 4.13 control of non-conforming product. 4.14 corrective and preventive action. 4.15 handling, storage, preservation, packaging, and delivery. Clause number 4.16 is control of quality records. 4.17 is internal quality audit. 4.18 training. 4.19 servicing. 4.19 servicing, and 4.20 statistical techniques. So these were the 20 element standards. So in the responsibility of the management, it was talking about what management should do. Quality system was talking about the structure of quality management system and the documentation. Contract review was talking about when you get a tender or inquiry, how you control that, how do you review them and keep records. And control of design control was how you perform design. Control of document and data is documented data control. Purchasing process. Control of supply, customer supplied product was talking about sometimes customer supplies product which becomes part of your delivery. So how do you control that? Like that, these are self-explanatory. So these 20 elements made ISO 9001, 1987 standard. In 9002, the design was not involved. And 9003 was far more limited. So let's see, what was the scope of 9001? It was model for design, development, production, installation, and servicing. And 9002 did not have design. It was model for quality assurance in production, installation, and servicing. Sometime, for example, a refrigerator company designs, manufactures, and services. Now, if a company is given the technology, they only manufacture the product, right? They do not do the design. They only get the design from their technology partner and do the manufacturing process. So they do the production process, they control the production, they produce the material, installs the product at site or wherever, and the servicing, after sales servicing. That was the scope of 9002. And 9003 was model for quality assurance in final inspection and testing. So only limited scope. That was 9001, 1987. In 1994, 9003 was stricken out because this was not being used by the time by most of the companies. They were going for 9001 or 9002. So that standard became really unpopular or not much used. So lost relevance, withdrawn. So two standard remained the same. Design, manufacture, after sales service was 9001, and manufacture and after sales service remained as the scope of 9002. Again, same 20 element structure. Where design is not included is 9002. Rest all elements are common, which was 1994 standard, the same way it is. In 2000, there was a significant change the structure of the standard changed. It became 8 element structure. And only ISO 9000 was there. 9002 was withdrawn. There was a historic perspective. What did happen? A lot of companies at the time we have seen they're talking about, oh, you got 9001, next time you get 9002 certifications. A lot of people, the users, had an impression that 9002 is a better standard. And for some people, 9002 was kind of an inferior complex they were getting. That we are not 9001, 9002. A lot of people thought they're inferior level of company, even though design was not involved for them. It does not affect their, the status of the company, but they started feeling that their company's position is being degraded in the public eye with the number 9001 and 9002. So 9002 stricken out. So all remained 9001. And the structure changed to 8 element structure. The first one is scope, normative reference terms and definition. These are elementary. The requirements started from clause number 4, which is the quality management system. And the clause number 5 was management responsibility. All management related elements were grouped in clause number 5. 6 is all about resource management, building infrastructure, machinery, equipment, work environment, infrastructure, manpower, training, awareness, all those were part of resource management. Clause number 7 was all about production. So, like contract review, planning for the production, contract review, design, procurement, manufacturing process, all those were part of product realization process, clause number 7. And well, at that point of time, what was allowed was if ISO 9000 standard, all will get, but you have to give the design is not applicable. Design is not included. Their organization is not responsible for design. So in your certificate, you will get 9001 certification only. However, in your certification, there will be an exclusion that design is not included in their system. And clause number 8 was measurement, analysis, and improvement. So these 8 element structure continued from 2000, even in 2008 standard, it continued. So design, manufacture, and after sales service, and manufacture and after sales service, this part was taken off, but design is not included. In 2000, 9002 was stricken off in 2000 version, right? So the requirement was quality management system, management responsibility, resource management, and then product realization, and then measurement, analysis, and improvement. That made 9001, 2008 standard also. So what was there in 2000? The same thing continued, and 2008 standard, it continued the same form. It was 9001 standard only. Again, the 8 element structure, scope, normative reference, terms and definitions, quality management system, management responsibility, resource management, product realization, and measurement, analysis, and improvement. So the same way, manufacture and after sales service, you can exclude in clause number 7 only. The standard clauses were grouped in such a way that you can seek exclusion in only clause number 7, nowhere else. So the design development, for example, could be excluded. Same thing continued. That was in 2008. That was 2008. 2015 standard came up with a whole new 10 element structure. So there was a process of standardization of all the management system standard. I was involved in auditing quality management system, occupational health and safety, environment, food safety, and other management system standards. Each standard had different sequence and the content structure, clause positionings were very, very different. That was posing a lot of challenges and technical complexities for implementation. Therefore, the implementation was so difficult. There was some publicly available standard introduced to find equivalence of one clause with one standard and the equivalent clause in another standard, because each standards were different in their structure and their sequencing. So integration was quite complex and difficult. It was because the technicality involved in implementing the standard, because the clause numbers. So it was more of a technical hassles. This was addressed in 2015 version of the standard. And that time, the standard became 10 element structure. Now, there is one change in clause numbers. There was a change when ISO 9001 2000 2008 talking about design is excluded. In 2015, it says design is not applicable. It's not exclusion. Exclusion gives a feeling that it is applicable, but they're excluding. There's a difference in meaning itself that design is not applicable at all. For example, a car service company. Steel design could be a process design. They can design a steel for certain specific property. But for a car service company, for example, for a crane design company, they definitely design a crane and manufacture the crane. Sometime some company is buying the design from some other company. They are only manufacturing the crane. In that case, the design is not applicable for them. So if something is not applicable for them, you will state that design is not applicable, but they will still get ISO 9001 only as per 2015 standard. So now ISO 9001, ISO 14001, ISO 45001, ISO 22301, which is Business Continuity Management System, ISO 50001, which is Energy Management System. All these have got the same 10 element structure. Let's have a look at it, how 2015 standard looks like. The first is scope, then comes normative reference. Normative reference means any other standard, if it is a part of 9001 standard, that will come in normative reference. So 9000, which is the terms and definitions and vocabulary, that standard is now part of 9001 standard. So that will be addressed in normative reference. So normative reference is a place where other standard can be integrated with the standard. So if you look at clause number 2, normative reference in ISO 9001 2015, it says 9000 2015 is the normative reference. Next is terms and definitions. So all terms and definitions will appear here. But interestingly, ISO 9001 2015 includes 9000 as the normative reference. And 9000 includes all the terms and definitions. So which is already become part of it. So there is no place, there is no need for the terms and definitions to be addressed separately. So in 9001 2015 terms and definitions says, look at 9000 and terms and definitions are given there. Now, why it is made like this? In some standard, there may not be any normative references. So in that case, the terms and definitions are addressed in clause number 3. For example, 9001 2015 is having 9000 as normative reference, but ISO 14000 standard does not have a normative reference. So in that case, terms and definitions will come in clause number 3. ISO 45001 does not have a normative reference. All the terms and definitions will appear in terms and definitions here in clause number 3. Requirement of the standard starts from context of the organization. You remember we talked about the constancy of purpose that Dr. Deming advocated. This is where context of the organization comes. The purpose of the organization, what good it is established for, what problem the organization is striving to solve. So purpose, the ecosystem of the organization, context is addressing those things. Here you will find the standard addresses the issues that is coming from outside the organization or within the organization, scope, interested parties, and so on. These are more in detail. So clause number 4 in all standard is context of the organization. Clause number 5 is leadership. All leadership element, which was in the previous standard, management responsibility, is now included in leadership. So what the leaders should do, creating customer-focused organization, defining their roles and responsibilities, those kind of things, which is done by the top management, is included in clause number 5. Then comes planning. Leadership will plan. So quality management system planning, risks and opportunities, all are part of clause number 6, right? And then comes support. So see the logical progression of the standard. the leadership is planning to provide support. So the context, the purpose of the organization, which is driven by the leadership, which now plans to provide resource for what? To produce. So operation is clause number 8. So all production related activities, design, knowing customer requirement, manufacturing process, servicing process, procurement, all those kind of things, control of non-conforming output, provision of external providers, all these things are part of operation process. Once you have produced the product, you have to check the quality of the product. You have to check whether things are done. So in PDSA model, the checking is your all performance evaluation. So you perform customer satisfaction, you measure the customer satisfaction, process conformity trend, product conformity trend, internal audit, management review. Those are all part of performance evaluation process. And then you take input. So you look at corrective actions, improvement opportunities, look at all the data analysis, internal audit results, customer feedback, process conformity, product conformity, all that you put into and you address improvement. And that's what the 10 element structure of ISO 9001 standard. I try to give you as much basic information as possible. One thing, a major shift has happened from 9001, 2008, and 2015 is that 9001, 2008 required, let us go back to the previous, the requirement of the documentation. They are process focused. Here, look at, they were process focused. There was a great deal of focus on the process, but there was some amount of documentation which was mandated by the standard, which included a quality manual. Organizations were required to have at least a quality manual. In the quality manual, you could have included the procedures also. And the standard required procedures for 6 clauses, not 6 procedures. Clauses, 6 clauses required procedures. That could have been one procedure as well. That could have been 6 or more procedures. But those 6 clauses needed procedure. The control of documents, control of records, control of non-conforming output, corrective action, preventive action, internal audit. Those are the procedures, basically quality assurance procedures. So it was control of document, control of records, control of non-conforming output, internal audit, corrective action, and preventive action. These 6 clauses needed procedure. That could have been one or group of procedures. A lot of people confused. There was no need to have 6 separate procedures. But what did happen due to interpretational prejudices? A lot of auditors demanded 6 separate procedures. So you have to have a quality manual and 6 separate procedure with the title like this. So lack of understanding. That was not the intent of the standard. In fact, if the all procedures were detailed in the quality manual, which nobody would have possibly done because of it becomes a voluminous document and difficult to handle. So there were different tiers of documentation, but technically it was acceptable to include all these in quality manual also. But typically there was a quality manual and 6 separate procedures, even though requirement was 6 clauses required procedure. So there's a thin line of difference. And the standard required at that point of time that the quality manual must include cross-reference to those 6. They could be separated, but there has to be a reference so that you know the overall structure. That was given with a name that there will be a basic structure. Quality management system should have a structure. That was the understanding. That was the kind of fundamental concept. Otherwise, it can become like an amoeba. There is no structure of the standard. So a quality manual and procedure for 6 clauses would have given a certain structure which is understandable by most, and it was easy for everybody to follow. But because of all these issues, a lot of complication with the documentation, a lot of auditors played really havoc, a lot of certification body auditors played havoc. So ISO realized the intent of the standard was consistency in the process or product for which procedure would have been helpful. Now the focus shifted quite far away from the product. The focus came, do you have a procedure? It went so much so some of the people are asking for hydro test of a small spool, do you have a procedure? This was ridiculous, that a doctor would not look at a procedure and perform a surgery. So certain things are competence driven. But what did happen is a wrong message went that for everything you need procedure. And in the process, the intent of the standard itself was lost. So ISO 9001, 2015, what it did, they liberated the need for quality manual and any mandatory procedures. Standard requires certain documented information to be maintained and certain documented information to be retained. Maintained are basically those which are procedures. So quality policy, quality objectives, the scope of the organization's business or scope of certification will be maintained as documented information that you refer all the procedures. And standard requires retaining certain documented information, which are basically records as per the earlier standard. For example, training record, for example, contract review record, for example, communication with the customer on design change or developmental changes, communication with the customer with regard to the product, the calibration record, the non-conformity record, internal audit records. You have got a management review record, corrective actions, and all those mandatory records have been specified, mandatory documented information. Standard is happy that you do your job with a process approach. You can have your own liberty to have whatever procedure, whatever documentation you have to have. You have a manual, no problem. You don't have, no problem. You have to have those mandatory minimum documented information maintained and retained. And then ISO liberated the organization that you choose whatever is required for your organization. But here is a problem. It is not the intent that you don't need a procedure. In reality, you might need a lot of procedures. Without procedure, no organization can perform and possibly consistently work. But that is left to the organization. And the documentation has to be valuable. And documentation will really depend on the technology available with the company. For example, you have got an ERP solution. In the ERP solution, all requirements are reviewed in the system itself. Purchase order is produced from the system. It is transmitted from the system. All records of reviews are documented there. All list of the approved suppliers are there. So there are a lot of documentation can be eliminated. The manufacturing process, the sophistication in the manufacturing process and the degree of automation may take away the need for any procedure to control a process, because system process inbuilt system itself will ensure there is a consistency in the product. So the documentation, extent of the documentation in the modern technological world would depend on the technical sophistication that is available within an organization. So the standard relieved and released the organization from such kind of complexities and minimum requirement for procedures and the manual. It is left to the organization, but those mandatory documented information that is required throughout the standard, as you go more into detail, you will find those are the minimum documentation that is required. Focus is now on results. Focus is now on process. Focus is now on consistency of the product and improve product and management system. Utilize the standard to your best requirement. The standard itself specifies all the requirements. So you look at how you address those requirements and your organization will definitely become a better organization. That's the whole idea for ISO 9001 standard today. I hope this discussion was useful and you got a historic perspective how the standard started its journey and where we are today. Thank you.